they want to buy an answer, right? They want to buy the right answer. They don't want to buy a methodology, especially the smaller you go. If you don't have a CIO and a CFO and a CHRO and teams under those folks to kind of manage large scale projects or change management, you need the right answer for that point in time, right? And that's where we come in.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, the podcast. At our recent associates, we believe that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Our daily commitment lies in informing our clients about legal risks without hindering their business objectives. As we like to say, we're in the business of building companies and helping executives sleep at night. So stay tuned. Maybe you'll learn something that'll help your business grow and thrive.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, where we believe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm your host, Rachel Reese. Before I introduce my guest, let's take a quick look at a recent case law update and break down what it means for your business. This update covers Klein versus Sunoco Inc., a case in the 10th Circuit originating out of Oklahoma. This case involves a dispute over royalty payments stemming from a violation of Oklahoma's Production Revenue Standards Act. Here's what happened. The PRSA was enacted in 1980 to regulate the marketing, sale, and production of hydrocarbons from Oklahoma wells. It requires that royalties be paid within 6 months of the first sale and 2 months after any subsequent sales. The PRSA states that the portion of royalties not timely paid will accrue 12% compound interest every year. Something to note is that Oklahoma's PRSA states that operators cannot withhold payments for marketable title issues, like you can in other states. If title issues arise, the operator is faced with the choice of possibly paying the wrong person or withholding payment and accruing compound interest of 6% every year. The plaintiff, Perry Klein, owns royalty interest in 3 Oklahoma wells. In 2017, Klein filed a class action lawsuit against Sunoco, alleging that over 53,000 class members received late payments without interest in violation of the PRSA, as Sunoco did not pay the owners within 6 months after the date of the first sale. Sunoco agreed that the class has a right to be paid their proceeds, but argued that they had already sent the proceeds to every class member. The issue at trial became what amount was due to the owners for the interests. The district court, after a 4-day trial, awarded judgment in favor of Klein and the class. The class of owners was awarded damages totaling $1.5 million for late payments that failed to include interest. However, the total amount awarded exceeded $103 million in actual damages, including prejudgment interest that accrued before and after the trial. Additionally, the district court granted the class $75 million in punitive damages. On appeal, Sunoco challenged the $103 million in actual damages and the $75 million in punitive damages. Sunoco argued that there were individual claims on marketable title against the 53,000 members of the class. To use this defense, Sunoco needed to show that there were legitimate title issues within the class. However, Sunoco was unable to establish a single instance of a legitimate question of title, and therefore was not entitled to the lower interest rate of 6% on any of the claims. Sunoco also challenged the award of prejudgment interest. Sunoco argued that it had paid the original proceeds, but not the compound interest, and adding interest on top of compound interest was unfair and unlawful. The court explained that compound interest means interest added to the principal amount. As unpaid compound interest accrues, it becomes part of the principal amount owed to the plaintiff. The court determined the accrual date stops when both the proceeds and the compound interest are paid, not just when the original proceeds were paid. Because Sunoco did not pay the combined proceeds and the compound interest amount, and there were no issues with title for any of the class members, the court upheld the district court's judgment of $103 million in actual damages. The court then addressed Sunoco's challenge to the $75 million punitive damages award. Sunoco argued that, under Oklahoma law, punitive damages are only available for tort claims, not breach of contract claims, and that the PRSA must be interpreted as a breach of contract claim. The court agreed with Sunoco, referencing an Oklahoma statute that states, in an action for breach of an obligation not arising from a contract, the jury may award punitive damages. Because breach of the PRSA is interpreted as a breach of contract under Oklahoma law, the plaintiffs could not be awarded punitive damages. Overall, the court struck down the $75 million punitive damage award, but upheld the $103 million award in actual damages. So why does this matter? Oklahoma's royalty payment statute, the PRSA, is much stricter than those in other oil and gas producing states. With mid-con drilling heating up again, first-time Oklahoma operators need to be aware of the potential for the accumulation of huge amounts of compound interest, even when there is a title defect, and work diligently to get those defects cured and payments out on time. That's all for today. I'd like to thank Frances Warden, a law clerk in our Denver office, for her help on this update. Today, I'm joined by Eric Fuller, President and CEO of Eikon-X. Eric brings over 15 years of global leadership experience in HR, operations, and business transformation across energy, industrials, and manufacturing. Before founding Eikon-X, he held senior roles at Halliburton and Conquest Completion Services, giving him deep, firsthand insight into how large organizations operate and transform. Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, Eric.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
I'm so glad you're able to make it in today. This is going to be great.
I'm super excited. First time on a podcast, actually.
Yeah. Well, we'll take it easy on you.
I appreciate that.
Well, for those of you who don't know what Eikon-X is, you should. But I'm going to let Eric explain it because he can do it way better than me.
Oh, okay. So Eikon-X, we're a professional services firm, boutique consulting firm focused on consulting operations and recruitment here in Houston. We started as a captive shared service organization, not-for-profit, for a family office of investments back in 2021. Since then, we've grown in our capability and service offering, and we've been working outside of that group since 2023.
Fantastic. And so you guys serve the energy industry, manufacturing, industrials.
Yeah, and the list goes on. We've got some customers in hospitality, consumer goods, and tech.
Fantastic. And we talked about this earlier, but you guys, you're consulting, you're recruiting, you're IT. What am I missing?
We also do HR, supply chain, and QHSE, health, safety, and environment.
Okay. I think a good place for us to start today, since we are both outsourcing companies, right?
Right.
Is I wanted to talk to you about the role of outsourcing and how, there's been such a shift in the last few years between, hey, we're going to get specialists and they're all going to do this thing and we have to have this big back office, sometimes even before we get assets, to what it is today.
You talk about the prior landscape, human nature. You want ownership of all of those functions, right? You want to fill your back office functions with people you can trust that have a lot of experience, right? The downside of that is obviously cost.
Yeah.
And the higher up you get in an organization, the more experience you have, the more of a generalist you become, and the less of a specialist you become, right? And so the reality is we're in Houston. It's, Texas is the eighth largest economy in the world, right? So Houston is a small country. So lots of opportunity here. And that means a lot of opportunity for new businesses, entrepreneurs. And those folks just don't have the budget, especially if they're bootstrapping, right? Not
Absolutely.
Private equity backed to bring in those positions, right? And the first couple years down that path, things are dynamic. Things are changing. So, your head of IT on day one might not be the right fit for your head of IT on day 365 and again on, year two. So
Absolutely. Yeah, when you're in that accelerated growth stage, right, you don't know where you're going to go next, right? You think you're down this path and, let's just do energy. Well, we think we're going to own assets in this basin, and so we need experts in this basin, and we need to know how to do royalties in Louisiana or what have you. And then, just kidding, we're in the Permian now.
Right. Yeah, which, being an HR guy, besides the geographic differences, there are differences between Louisiana and Texas, right? So, and the Permian, such a wealth of oil and gas experience, completely different culture than Louisiana as well, right? So you got the human element as well beyond the specialization piece.
The proposition is for companies that are growing, companies that are in startup phase, or even companies that just are larger but have a change in direction or have to stay lean for some reason, they can rely on Eikon-X's expertise.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. So we're entrepreneurial. We are a cultural fit really with startups, but we've got a lot of experience on the family office side because that's our beginnings.
Yeah.
My team's made up of corporate executives, former corporate executives. So we get all the good stuff from corporate, but we get to be nimble. Unlike corporate sometimes, right?
And I feel like that's what folks are looking for these days, especially in their outsourcing. They need folks that are nimble, right? What did you say to me earlier? They want a solution, not a method.
They want to buy an answer, right? They want to buy the right answer. They don't want to buy a methodology, right? Especially the smaller you go, right? If you don't have a CIO and a CFO and a CHRO and teams under those folks to kind of manage large scale projects or change management, you need the right answer for that point in time, right? And that's where we come in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes the process just isn't going to work, right? It doesn't mean it's a bad process. It's just not the process for this company.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, for budgetary reasons or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Again, I can't harp on culture enough, right? It's a big piece of it as well that needs the right level of consideration and attention.
Absolutely. And you guys touch on culture a lot, I'm sure, in your recruiting piece. It's
really nice having recruiting in-house, right? And so when I think about our company and why we're unique, most solutions don't stop within the silo, right? You've got an IT solution or a big initiative, you got a finance solution. They impact HR, supply chain, procurement, IT, right? And because we're set up with experts across those areas, small, nimble teams, we can develop a more sustainable solution. We're better suited to develop a sustainable solution that considers the impacts kind of beyond the silo's edge, right? And then on the recruitment side, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, you might think you need a head of HR or a head of IT, right? What does that mean, right? There's $100,000 heads of IT out there. There's $300,000 heads of IT.
Absolutely.
I would say to folks that are starting on that journey is use outsourcing firms to get you to a steady and sustainable state, and then hire the fit for purpose solution. And why we're different, right, than a lot of firms is we've helped you build the sustainable solution. We've been in-house for 3, 6, 9 months, however big it is. We know your culture. We know exactly what you need go forward. And it's a seamless handoff to recruitment, right? So we've had a lot of clients find success with that model.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's really interesting. I want to circle back to something you mentioned briefly earlier about the move from specialists to generalists. Can you tell me more about that?
Let's talk about big corporate environments, right? You start out as a specialist, right? And then for back office functions, really, that aren't through an operations or business development career path, you have to be very deliberate about getting broader exposure beyond the role you were hired in, right? Your specialist role, right?
You better.
Right. I mean, it's the best way to move up, but also, increase your value. So the issue with that is in a singular corporate environment is you not only lose a little bit of the specialist experience, you are gaining the generalist experience, but it's really within that one ecosystem, right? So no matter how hard you try to see things a certain way or a different way to do things or whatever, you could be at a best-in-class Fortune 100 company, and they do things great. Obviously, they do things great. They wouldn't be in the Fortune 100 otherwise. But it's their way of doing it, right? And there could be other ways of doing it. Well, there definitely are other ways of doing it, right?
That makes me think of, is it Chevron or Conoco maybe both, that has that sort of leadership program, and you can tell the people that come out of it, you're like, oh, well, obviously you're a graduate of that program.
For sure. I'm sure both of them do.
Yeah.
Halliburton had one as well, supply chain management program, which was, 2.5-year phenomenal program that groomed future leaders for supply chain. They also had the same thing on the operation side of the business, where you got a little bit of expertise in the product line and the technology at the country level, at the global level, on the sales side. So a lot of companies have those programs, and they're best in class. But you got to be a certain size, to be able to afford that, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what other advice do you have for people early in their career for how to increase their value?
I think be open to whatever opportunity presents itself, right? That's pretty generic, so I'll double click on it a little bit. I mean, you might come out of school thinking this is going to be my career path, right? You're very deliberate about it, and that works for some folks, right? But with the introduction of technology, and as companies begin to leverage that technology, some of those opportunities that are there for you earlier in your career, they're not as numerous later in your career. So it's super important early in your career, volunteer for things, right?
Raise your hand.
Hey, you want to do this? God, that sounds like it's going to take me off track a little bit. It actually will open doors for you down the road. Right?
Absolutely. It's something that we recently started saying around here, must be present to win.
Right. I mean, totally. I mean, relationships are still a big part of the game today, right? People do things and advocate for folks that they like and they have a relationship with. And they're more inclined to take a risk on you if they know your character and who you are as a person. And the only way to really get that across is being present to win, as you say.
Absolutely. Yeah, we just had a conversation with Mark Castiglione, and he was talking about the importance of those relationships that you get early on in your career. He still has people from his job way back at Burlington in Farmington, New Mexico, calling him for jobs.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I mean, it's the same thing for me, right? So I started in recruiting at Halliburton, and the relationships I made with the hiring managers I supported, right? I look back at those folks now. They are VPs, they are CEOs, they are looking at exploring a different career path. And they'll pick up the phone and call me and ask for advice. Yeah. And I'll pick up the phone and call them and ask where I can help, right? So 100% those relationships continue on.
Okay, so we've talked about the evolution from keeping everything in-house to outsourcing. When is the right time to consider outsourcing?
Oh, I mean, selfishly, all the time for me, right?
Day one.
Day one. Yeah, just say, let's outsource it. No. Look, the right time is when you've got a really good feel for your strategy. You've tried some things, you've broken some things. You're just confident enough to say, okay, I know this could be better, this area could be better, but I don't know how to necessarily make it better, right? And so that's a fine place to start, right?
Yeah, I like that you mentioned you have to break things first, right? Because so many people, they think that they know exactly how they want it and this is what it's going to be. And you're like, well, unless you've tried a couple iterations, you don't really know.
Yeah. No, we've got a saying in our company, right? I don't think I invented this or anything. I'm sure there's a famous quote from somewhere, but fail often, but fail fast, right? So what does that tell you? It tells you exactly what you said. Try a bunch of different things, break a bunch of different things in different ways, and, really don't have an ego. No ego or ownership of your idea and forcing it to be the right answer. Fail often, fail fast. You'll get to the right solution quicker.
Yeah, and the sky's not falling when you fail, right?
The sky's not falling when you fail. No, yeah, absolutely not. And if you feel like it is, again, it's a great time for outsourcing.
When the sky's falling.
Yeah. Kind of like when you call your mom, sky's falling, mom, and she's like, no, sky's not falling. Everything's going to be fine. We provide that same comfort to folks, right, on the business side.
So if we were to wrap this up now, the tagline would be call Eric, call your mom.
Call Eric, he'll call his mom. Going back to what you said, the right time for outsourcing. Yeah, you got to break things But beyond that, there's always a business case for it, right? So rather than fight over that piece of the budget related to headcount, right? And put all your eggs in kind of that hero model basket, it makes sense to take that same money and put it with somebody who has seen 5 or 6 different ways to do it and is going to bring you an outcome, right? But, tactical stuff as well, right? Like you've got an HR department of 1 or 2. You want your HR person to be more strategic, but 20% of their time spent on payroll. Early Christmas present, it's the season. Outsource that payroll, right?
Yeah.
Outsource it to experts that know how to handle those questions, right? Same on AP, AR, right? You want to develop somebody up through an accounting organization. Get those things off your desk, save some money, reallocate those funds to the big strategic rocks that you got to move.
Absolutely, because you can outsource not the mundane, but the day-to-day, right? The things that keep you from strategy. You can outsource someone coming up with the strategy, but you can't outsource implementing the strategy. So you got to free up that time that people can actually do it.
Yeah, and that's the important part, right? You got to make it sticky.
Yeah.
And it's the employees that are going to remain at the organization that do that, right?
Exactly. So tell me more about working with Iconix. If people are hearing this and they're like, oh, this is interesting. What's your ideal client? Who are you looking for? Who's looking for you but just doesn't know it yet?
Private equity is a great client for us. Typical private equity organizations, they're really heavy on the finance expertise.
Yeah.
Especially if they've got, less mature companies in their portfolio. But they don't want to waste a lot of money on the back office stuff.
Well, private equity is a good one too because they're not going to be there that long. Why hire a big headcount just to have to let them go in 3 to 5 years?
Exactly. But there's a lot of stuff you can do in 2 and 3 years on the private equity side, back office side, to increase the value for that exit, right? If you're looking at M&A, right, you're trying to ready yourself for an exit, give us a shout. If you are looking at acquiring a company and you've got great due diligence again on the finance side, but you might need some help on the supply chain, vendor management, contract side, give us a shout, right? There's a lot of risks there. A lot of risks on the employment side with contracts and that sort of thing.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many buy-side due diligences we've been looking at that, okay, here's everything they said, here's and we get in and we're like, okay, so that big contract that they said is going to make all of this money for next year, it's not a real contract. It's a verbal agreement. Let's maybe put a little bow on that before we move forward.
That'd be nice. Or it could be worse. It could be a real contract with some real tiny print in there that
no one read.
That no one looked at. Yeah.
It's cancelable in 30 days.
That's right. Yeah. So, all of that stuff, the minutia, right? Looking at the financials, understanding that's the big piece of it. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of booby traps beyond that.
And if you're a generalist, you may not know where all the booby traps lie because you don't do this every day.
Gosh, did we practice that before? My goodness.
It might be part of my pitch.
Yeah. No, beyond that, look, family office, that's how we came up. Companies that are going to be doing a lot of hiring, give us a shout. But most people are like me at the company. We're super approachable. You don't got to put on your, I'm talking to a consultant, I got to look good hat, right, for my boss. Come to us if you want an answer, right? And a solution.
I feel like that should be your tagline. Come to us if you want a solution.
Come to us. Yeah, fair enough. All right, I'll take it under advisement. Yeah.
I'm going to need some royalties on that if it becomes your tagline.
Okay. And I know you'll be checking the website. Yeah.
We have it on recording.
Oh, God.
All right. So wrapping up, final thoughts. What do you want to leave our listeners with today? Boutique consulting is coming up. There's a lot of great folks out there to partner with, right? You don't have to do it the old way where you're spending a ton of money for, again, a methodology, right? 2, it's the Christmas season, right? So think about your back office folks. Think about your finance team. Think about your IT team. Think about your HR team. And think about how you can make
their lives easier and their career path more robust.
There you go.
And probably save a little bit of money along the way, right? So, yeah, if you are entering 26 with some uncertainty about how you're going to implement XYZ with this certain budget, give us a shout.
Thanks for being here today, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
The information and material in this episode is general information about our practice and firm and is for educational and informational purposes only. This information does not offer specific legal advice, and the use of this information does not create an attorney-client relationship with RRNA or any of its attorneys. The information in this episode, or any episode of An Ounce of Prevention, should not be considered legal advice, and persons should not act upon this information without first engaging professional legal counsel.
Thank you for listening to An Ounce of Prevention, presented by R. Reese & Associates. If you found this episode informative, subscribe to, rate, and review our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to stay up to date with future episodes, case law updates, and breaking news. If you have any questions or are interested in learning what RRNA's outsourced legal department can do for your company, reach out to us at podcast@rreeselaw.com. That's podcast@rreeselaw.com. Follow us on LinkedIn or call 832-831-2289.